How's it going, YouTube? My name is Jdotb, your resident Mistweaver monk, and guys, today we're going to be taking a look at hero talents. Now, I know some of you guys did see a video that I posted a couple days back about hero talents, but I had some information wrong. So today, to make up for it, we're going to have a more fun video than trying to be informational about it, because let's be honest, there's not much out in the open about hero talents just yet. But we're going to be taking a look at the monk talents. And we're going to be doing something a little predictive, also a little fun. What we're going to be doing today is trying to, one, guess or predict what these talent trees might or could look like, but also I'll be sprinkling in some wish list things in there. So instead of making two videos, one a wish list video and then two a prediction video, like a realistic prediction video, I'm going to try to just bake it all into one and make it a fun video talking about what I think we could see potentially in these three hero talent trees. Now, how it's going to work, if you haven't looked into it at all, is once 11.0 drops, we're going to get an extension to our talent tree list. Basically, we're going to get to choose one of two different talent trees. So every combination of monk specs has a specific hero talent tree. So for example, Master of Harmony might be Brewmaster and Mistweaver, Shadowpan might be Mistweaver and Windwalker, and then Conduit of the Celestials might be Windwalker and Brewmaster. So both of those specs share a hero talent tree, and it's one of these three. And at first glance, you might probably be thinking, well, they haven't released anything about monk specs or monk hero talent trees except for their names. And while that's a little bit right, I've been staring at this list for so long that I think I've been able to draw a couple conclusions and kind of, I think I can see how they're going to go with the talent trees. And I think I'm right. But let me know what you guys think down below before you actually watch the video. Let me know what you guys are predicting they actually put in these talent trees. But first off, the first thing that I've noticed is, yes, we don't have anything spoiled about the monk trees. We do have some spoiled about the other trees, like Evoker, Warrior, Paladin, and Druids especially. Druids have two of theirs semi-spoiled, but then also Death Knights. But one thing that we do know is Paladins. Now, their Lightsmith tree is for Holy and Proc, so their tank and healing spec. So this is that. We're not really going to go over all these today, but their healing and tank spec is for Paladin the first one listed. So you could kind of try to connect those two dots and say that, well, if they kept that same structure throughout, then maybe Mastery of Harmony or Master of Harmony is the tank and healer spec. So the Brewmaster fused with Mistweaver hero talent tree. However, it's hard to kind of just base an entire video off that, although I do think that's probably how this is structured. I'm not going to base this video on that. What we're going to do today is we're going to take Master of Harmony and we're going to guess if Mistweaver is one of the two specs that is under Master of Harmony, who do they share that hero talent tree with? And then also we're going to talk about what I think could be on that tree if they do share it with that spec. And same for Shadowpan, same for Conduit of the Celestials. And a couple things to note about these talent trees are that, one, there are no real talents. Basically everything on every talent tree is going to be passive, and there's going to be, I think it said, 3 choice nodes on each one. So we're not going to dive into what choice nodes are going to be, but they're all going to be passive, so you won't be getting any new spells. And as you read through some of these abilities, they all do one of either 3 things so far. So one is they either kind of change the usage of an existing spell. So look at Harmony of the Grove. All it does is, for rest of Druids, is it's going to increase the Grove Guardian, or your healing while the Grove Guardians are out, by 3%. So all in all, just giving you a stat boost while your Grove Guardians are out. That's not the change, but what really kind of changes is when balanced Druids summon their little treants that are supposed to help the tank, pull ads off the tank a bit. Now you're going to do more damage while they're out. So now all of a sudden you're going to pair this with your cooldowns like in a raid. It's going to be weird. But then also they are also going to be spawning or casting Moonfires on enemies near them. So right here you can see 2 of the different ways that these talents are going to be adding to your class. One is they're just going to be buffing the effectiveness of what a spell already does. And then the top line, what it does for balanced druids, is actually kind of changing the functionality of a spell. But then also there are some just stat boosts that you get from certain things. Like for Death Knights, while you're within your death and decay, sorry, I lost it for a second there, but while you're in your death and decay, your physical damage, you're basically taking less damage. But then also another thing, like another theme that I'm seeing in all these talent trees is that it's just completely transforming a spell. So turning like your Vivify into like First Vivify, like something like that. But like Vampiric Strike is the best example of that. So you have a chance to make your next Hard Strike or Scourge Strike into Vampiric Strike, and it just does something differently. And most of this talent tree is based on enhancing the new and improved Vampiric Strike. So my eyes are going to be over here. I'm going to be reading my notes and my script that I have written out. But let me know what you guys think. So first off, we're going to be taking a look at Shadowpan. This was the one that I was most excited to talk about. So it is the first one that I dove into on my notes. So the first thing is one, I did not play back in Mists of Pandaria, but since I'm a monk, since I'm so immersed in the lore, I've looked a lot into the lore. And I've gone back and I've done all the Mists of Pandaria like quests and stuff. Not all of them, but a lot of the big ones. And I know a little bit about Shadowpan. So the things that I do know are that they were founded by Xiao. So Xiao's lesson, think Xiao's lesson, that guy. They were started by him. And it was 100 monks, basically like a little miniature army of 100 monks. Think like 300, the Sparta movie. 100 monks that trained under Zwin. So the white tiger, the white celestial tiger that Windwalkers summon and fight alongside, that's who they trained under. Now, also taking in mind that it was 100 Windwalker monks and the leader of the Shadowpan monks was a Windwalker, I'm thinking that it's pretty obvious that one of these two specs is going to be Windwalker. Now, my hope is that it's Mistweaver and Windwalker, because out of the three listed here, Master of Harmony, Shadowpan, and Conduit with Celestials, Shadowpan to me sounds like it's going to be the coolest. Although these hero trees are pretty limited in what they can do and how much they can change your class, I think Shadowpan is the coolest. So I hope that we are on this one. But since they were also founded by Xiao and they trained under Zwin, to me that just gives Mistweaver and Windwalker. So I think that we're going to be learning some lessons from Xiao or fighting alongside Zwin, gaining some electric powers from Zwin. So here's what I'm thinking. So first off, I think that, and I hope that, there's a shadow extension or a Sha extension of our fists that extends the reach of all of our melee abilities. So for both Windwalker and Mistweaver, I think that this is something that both specs have been asking for ages now, to get a slight extension. Because like Paladins have 2 yards extension on all their spells for free, basically. So I could see the passive talent that we get from the Shadowpan is that we now have an extension of our melee range. I think that could be great. We would all love that. Who would hate that? So another thing that I could expect from this talent tree, if it were a Mistweaver and Windwalker talent tree, is a replacement of an existing spell that both specs share. So for example, something like how the old Windwalker tier set that made your Rising Sun Kick kind of shoot a pulse through enemies, I could see them doing something similar. So basically, like every time that one of these specs, like a Windwalker or a Mistweaver, Tiger Palms, it'll also shoot a little tiny miniature, like tiny little wave through things, like a little chi burst that does like a little bit of shadow damage and maybe a little bit of healing if it passes through allies. That way it can kind of like change up how you play the class. Like now all of a sudden, instead of being behind the boss, you could be in front of the boss, shooting it through your party or through your melee. I don't know. I think that could be cool, and it kind of fits. Like using the Dark Fist, or however the Shadowpan fought. Literally Shadowpan, I'm pretty sure, means Shadow Hand. So to me, that just makes sense. Is adding a dark extension to your Tiger Palm would be pretty sick. But also, similar to the Death Knights, how they're gaining bonuses in their Death and Decay, I could see how Windwalkers and Mistweavers, one thing they share in common is that they're still using Jadefire Stomp. Not in all forms of content, but this is probably how it's incentivized. Like when you play content where you're playing Jadefire Stomp, you could take this hero talent tree that will change how your Jadefire Stomp behaves. So maybe giving a slight stat buff while you're on that Jadefire Stomp, maybe like 2% verse, or, you know, like nothing sexy, but like 5% movement speed while you're on your Jadefire Stomp, or like 5% mitigation or 2% damage mitigation, something like that. I feel like that would make sense to kind of enhance your Jadefire Stomp. Maybe your Jadefire Stomp is corrupted by the Sha, and while you stand on it, you just gain temporary buffs, and then maybe while you step off of it, you are no longer buffed. I mean, it makes sense to me, and I feel like it fits thematically. Seeing how most of these talent trees kind of build off of each other, off of like one talent, I could then see some talents that kind of enhance those spells or enhance certain spells. So one good example is like after you cast your J Fire Stomp, or I guess if they did change that, it would be like Shaw Stomp. I don't know. Stomp the Yard. Who knows? But after you cast that, like your next Rising Sun Kick does like 10% more damage, or gets like a slight boost, or it could do an extra proc of shadow damage. Because one thing that we're seeing, and I believe the Druid, the Bear, and balance tree is that like there are a lot of extra proc things. Like your Moonfires have a chance to summon a Fury of Elune and things like that. Like there's a lot of extra procking damage, and I think that the Shadow Pan makes sense to have extra procking things. I then could see some like additions to your mobility, like I said, like a 5% movement speed boost. Because what I've seen about the Shadow Pan is that they're like extremely nimble. So I would think that some kind of mobility would come in this class. And maybe it's not adding mobility, but changing the active mobility that we have. So for example, if you remember the old Conduit spell, or no, it was an anima power back in Torghast. Yeah, sorry to take you back there, but back in Torghast, when you would roll through an enemy, it would shoot a chi burst through anyone that you pass through. So you could just like roll, shoot a chi burst, roll back, shoot more chi bursts, and you could take all roll talents and just roll, 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 roll. And it was pretty fun. But I think that that could be something you see here, where if you roll through someone, maybe if they do change your Tiger Palm, then you'll Tiger Palm everyone that you go through. But that would be actually kind of broken. So maybe not that, but you would shoot like a shadow wave of through anyone that you pass through, or shoot a shadow heal through people that you pass through. Like a miniature little chi burst would go as you roll. And I think that could be cool. Once again, also thematic. Or other ways like enhancing your roll. So after you roll, semi to a Chi Torpedo, after you roll, you gain a slight movement speed boost. Or after you roll, your feet become coated in like Shaw energy, and your next Blackout Kick or Spinning Crane Kick or Rising Sun Kick does bonus damage. I do also expect to see some form of representation of Xiao and Zwin in this talent tree if it is Mistweaver and Windwalker. And since Mistweaver already has Xiao's lesson, obviously it's not going to be called that. However, his lessons were all about driving back the negative energy of the Sha. So he taught them how to drive back the negative emotions of fear, anger, hatred, and doubt, which are the 4 Xiao's lessons buffs. So I could see this implemented into some kind of talent that modifies Expel Harm. Now we're already seeing Expel Harm be really strong for Brewmasters, really strong for Mistweavers, and now like also Windwalkers do press it to get a combo point, or not a combo point, sorry, I've been playing too much Classic, but a chi. But to me, it just makes sense that if they were to add some form of talent like Shaw's energy or something, but every time that you expel harm, you also expel some form of one of these negative energies, and it'll cycle through just like how Shaw's lesson does, or it could be randomized. When you expel harm, you basically get like a 5% stat buff of one of your tertiary stats, or I could see something like giving you a little bit of bonus damage, or like pulsing like a little chi pulse around you, or giving you a small little shield, or a little bit of movement speed could be one of the buffs, or like I said, just some kind of stat buff. Makes sense to me. But you're expelling harm, you could also be expelling these negative emotions from your body, and that would be super thematic and tie in Xiao, which is what ties the Shadow Pan to Mistweavers, which is why one of the reasons why I think that this is why they should share this hero talent tree. But then also for Zwin. Now, I have to mention this because we have a spell, us monks, you know the one, Tackling Jade Lightning, that is just so disappointing. I mean, it's cool. You feel like a Sith Lord, but it's just not sexy. And I think that one thing that they could do, I hope they don't, because I don't want to see Windwalkers stopping their rotation to just cast a really strong Cackling Jade Lightning. That's not what I want, unfortunately. So unfortunately, I prefer the spell be useless. But if they were to tie in Zwin somehow, I think it could be cool to change up Cackling Jade Lightning and maybe make it like either twice as strong, because not only are you doing it, but then like an effigy of Shaw like also blasts Shaw energy, or like Zwin also blasts his energy at them too, or maybe now it cleaves onto multiple enemies because you're doing it, but then Zwin's empowering your Cackling Jade Lightning. I don't know, maybe just something to make this button worth pressing, but like I said, I don't like that idea because I don't want that button to be in our rotation. It fits its purpose of like pulling things far away when our taunt's down, or we don't want to draw total aggro. And yeah, I don't want to see Caster Windwalker ever become a thing. But that is one way that they could implement that into this. Like I said, Shadowpan was the hero talent tree that I was the most excited for. But now coming on to Conduit of the Celestials, this one I am less excited for, but probably the second most excited for. But there's a lot less notes. I promise you that was the most talking I'll do. But for I'm hoping for some fusion of Celestials. Maybe not like a fusion like this, but just like summoning two alongside of each other would be like broken. Let's be real, that would be sick. But allow me to explain. So, for example, if this is between Brewmaster and Mistweaver, which is what I'm hoping and what I'm actually thinking, to me, that's the only one that makes sense. I do think we are gonna land here since we do have two Celestials to the other specs one. But I think that this is going to be us with Brewmaster. And I'll explain more about why I don't think Brewmaster is going to be in Mastery of Harmony once we get to Mastery of Harmony. But what I'm thinking is that when you summon your Celestial in either Brewmaster or Mistweaver spec, if you talent into one of these talents, then you'll also summon like a minor image of the other specs Celestial. So if you summon Nujo, I don't know how to say it. I'm going to say Najal just because that's how I read it. Correct me in the comments, please. I need to learn how to say that. So while Nizao is out for the Brewmasters, whenever you Breath of Fire, a little image of Yulon also sprays a Breath of Yulon out, like a small one, like a very reduced rate one, but just also he breathes with you. Or something like your Blackout Kick and your Rising Sun Kick while you're in Brewmaster spec will also kick up like a random Gust of Mist proc, because Chiji will come and just like peck your friend, you know? Something like that, something to tie in the other spec Celestial into your spec. And then for Mistweavers, it could cause your Enveloping Breath hot that you do, or that you apply while your Celestial's out, to also stagger a small amount of damage for some amount of time. Like maybe for everyone that has Enveloping Breath on them, that buff also gains that it'll stagger 10% of the damage for the next 3 seconds or something, just to delay some of the damage. Just something that we've been asking for a long time. I know it would be broken putting stagger on a healer. However, putting it on Revival is too strong. Putting it on its own button is too strong. But making it a very small stagger to make Najal kind of like come and help out your Celestial, to me makes sense. And it doesn't sound broken, but maybe I'd have to see it to realize just how broken that would be. But then if you summon Chiji, then every time that you either reach 3 stacks, or maybe every time that you cast an Enveloping Mist while Chiji's out, then whoever you cast it on, Najal will come and like stomp on them and delay and like stagger 5% of their damage, or do like an AoE tiny little stomp that does some damage whenever you Enveloping Mist someone. Basically being like a little Zen Pulse. I think that could be pretty cool, just adding a little bit of bonus AoE damage to Chiji. Adding a little bit of stagger to both your Celestials could be pretty sweet. And then also adding some healing value to Najal could also be very strong. But I think that this could also be an opportunity to introduce us to an entire new Celestial. Now, like I said, these hero talents are all passive. So you will not see like a brand new spell like Convoke the Spirits come in these talent trees. However, I think this could be like a pretty cool time to introduce a new Celestial, but like a smaller one. Like maybe it's not like Zwin, it's not the Ox, it's not like, you know, it's not those big ones. It's a small one. Like maybe I'm thinking like, picture this. You summon a little Celestial Porcupine whenever you spinning Crane Kick, or maybe it's like once every 5% of the time when you spinning Crane Kick, you'll summon a Celestial that's a little porcupine on your leg to spin with you, and he just latches on, gives your leg a hug, and everyone that you spinning Crane Kick also gets a thorn, and that does like a little bit of damage or makes them bleed or something. That would be sick. It would add a little, it could be like a tiny amount of bonus damage. But I think that could be cool, just adding in some form of new Celestial. Obviously, that is just like a very basic example, but just some small Celestial that doesn't have to be a complete cooldown, but at least to introduce us to a new Celestial, so that maybe in like future expansions, we could have, when we have a big talent shakeup or a big spell shakeup, we could be reworked into that new Celestial. I think that could be a pretty cool idea. So I think this talent tree, although to me it's not the most exciting, I think it has the most potential for just, it's like really cool for the future. I think they could go some pretty unique directions here by either fusing some of the power between Celestials or completely introducing a new Celestial, which could just set us up for a future of great times as a monk. Finally, moving on to Master of Harmony. Now, like I said, I don't think that Brewmasters are going to land here. And also, this is the most vague of all three of these. Like, we can guess that this is going to have to do with Celestials. We can guess that this is going to be Windwalker and have to do with the Shadowpan monks. But for Master of Harmony, all I know is like Chi Harmony is with Mistweavers, and Song of Chi, like songs have to do with harmony. But for the most part, like things operating in harmony are things that just flow, are fluid, maybe synchronized. And to me, that really does give like either a singer or like some kind of synchronized dance or like routine. And I know I'm connecting a bunch of dots here, stick with me, but to me that gives Windwalker and Mistweaver, because I don't think that the drunk class that burps fire gives anything to do with harmony. It's not like beautiful, like harmonious is, it's just a beautiful word, or it's supposed to be. Whereas with Windwalkers, their mastery is the number one thing that tipped me off that this would have to do with Windwalkers. Now, I think this could be Windwalker and Mistweaver if Shadowpan goes to Windwalker Brewmaster. Their mastery is all about weaving in different spells. So you Blackout Kick, and then you Rising Sun Kick, and then you Blackout Kick, you Tiger Palm. Like, you don't want to do the same thing twice in a row because you're like dancing. It's like a fluid battle thing. And then healers, obviously, we're weaving in the mist with our kicks. Like, it's just a beautiful, harmonious fighting style. So that's what tipped me off to thinking this most likely, just solely based on the name, would go to non-Brewmasters. Also, one thing that I would honestly love to see is, if that is the case, if Mistweavers are a part of this, if they are sharing this with Windwalkers, I would love to see this play off of their masteries, because one thing that all of us Mistweavers are so tired of is our mastery. It's just not fun or powerful. And I don't think they're not going to completely, obviously, change what a mastery does in a hero talent tree, because that would just not work, honestly. But what they can do is affect how they work. So Mistweavers, as you know, we have a spot heal that procs whenever we spot heal someone. And then Windwalkers, I've already explained it, they do, they alternate spells so that they get enhanced power. And I think they could play around that a little bit. So I think this could exist as a talent on this hero tree that says something like our mastery has a 5% chance to be twice as effective. So amplifying your spinning crane kick on a Windwalker by twice as much from your mastery, or for Mistweavers, you just get a twice as strong proc, and that could scale pretty nicely with that talent that no one takes that also doubles your mastery procs. Or it could change how they work when your Celestial's active. So you gain a very reduced effect of the other spec's mastery. So, for example, for Windwalkers, it would proc off of their kicks. It would proc kind of like as if you had Chi out. So whenever you kick, you might summon a small little tiny hot on someone while you have Zwen out. You'll do like a tiny little mastery proc whenever you kick something. And by that, I mean a Mistweaver mastery proc, like a small little gust of mist you might accidentally kick up, because now you share that power. You're harmonious with your Mistweaver friends. And also, Mistweavers could gain like a small stacking damage buff, and or just like a healing modifier if they continue to alternate different spells. So instead of doing Tiger Palm, Blackout Kick, you might now be incentivized to do Tiger Palm, Rising Sun Kick, Blackout Kick, or, you know, things like that in order to keep your buff. Now that would have to be like super bad. It wouldn't be able to be a strong buff, or else this talent tree would be pretty strong for Mistweavers. So say for example, every time while your Celestial is out that you do a different spell than you just cast, you gain like a 1% damage buff, and it stacks up to like 5% and then goes away the moment that your Chi-Ji or Yu'lon despawns. I think that could be pretty sick. And then the word harmony kind of makes me feel that these two specs or their fighting styles will kind of like fuse together. So maybe some form of summoning like a little image or like a little clone of a monk. Think Fallen Order, but think green. Like think Jade Green instead of like the red Venthyr Fallen Order monk. But picture this. If you're a Mistweaver, every time that while you have this talent taken, every time that you Rising Sun kick, you summon a little clone monk that'll just do a flying crane kick in and just kamikaze into your enemy or your target and then disappear. Like a small amount of damage. Or if you're in Windwalker spec, every time you Rising Sun kick, you'll spawn a little like a little clone monk that's like a jade green, and he just casts like an essence font, not the bolt, just the hot onto one of your allies, like something like that. Just spawn a little clone, do one thing, and then go away. I think that could be cool, and it could kind of like, while you're weaving with your own playstyle, you'll see little like images of the other playstyle come in. That could be pretty sick. But how they would balance that, it would have to be like kind of weak, like I'm saying, like the essence font, hot. The flying crane kick as the damage. Like, it would have to be very weak in order to make it work. But I could see them going that way. And as someone who's a fan of Fallen Order, that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I think that could be sick. I mean, obviously not bringing something as strong as Fallen Order, but just summoning a little clone. They have the coding for it. Just let it happen. This could be also like a pretty cool way to boost the stats if we're going to go back to that, like how all the other talent trees boost the stats of their class in some way. How I think this Master of Harmony would boost this class is by maybe like adding a little bit to our raid buffs. So our Windwalking, our Generous Pour, and the other one, Close to Heart, whatever they're called, the raid buffs that monks have. If you're Windwalker or Mistweaver, just making them slightly stronger. I know that's like broken. That is actually probably the most broken thing I've said today, because monks do not need any more raid buffs. Maybe I should just like edit that out, but just giving us some form of buff. So like when that monk disappears, like maybe that is like the top talent. Like whenever you Rising Sun kick, you'll spawn a monk that does like this effect or this effect, depending on what spec you're in. And then as you work down the talent tree, you can buff that monk to do like maybe he does send an essence font bolt and the hot, or you know, like something like that. And then when he disappears, you get this little buff, like maybe 1% stamina or 2% stamina, or 2% verse would be sick, or 1% crit would be cool. Like something like that, just boosting our stats is something that is realistic that I could see them doing. And guys, that is all my notes. Those are my predictions. It's hard coming up with full talent trees, but I just wanted to talk about what I think we can expect. Now, I'm not saying that we can expect any of these changes to come into the game. I'm just saying you can expect changes like this, like very weak little stat boosts or small little changes to your spells. Almost cosmetic, some of them will be, but then hopefully the talent trees will kind of change how your class feels and make them perform better. That's all we can hope for, and I hope they do a good job of making it badass. Guys, let me know what you think of my proposed changes, my wish list, whatever you want to call this video. Let me know what you guys think of it down below. And while you're down there, type a message to my Patreons. These are the guys on the screen right now. They absolutely make this possible. They are the reason why I'm able to make these videos and convince my wife to let me do it another week or two. So thank you so much to these guys. And if you want to see your name on the screen in future videos and unlock some minor perks, then check out the Patreon and the link in the description below, and check out all the tiers that we have on there. But guys, thank you so much for watching. Make sure that you like this video if you like these fun kind of just like theory crafting, not even theory crafting, just like shooting the shit. That's the only way I can describe it. But let me know if you like that by hitting the like button, and make sure you're subscribed, because when all this stuff comes to the game, you bet your ass I'm going to have some guide videos on how to optimize it and how to have fun with it. But before I let you guys go, I want to let you also know about a fun thing that I'm doing on my Twitch. twitch.tv/lbninja7. It's the same name here, but we are taking all the healing specs to 3K IO, and some of them, like one of them is at 400, one of them's at 600, so we have a long way to go. We're going to be streaming that most days, so make sure and check that out. Go follow, or just stay tuned here on the channel, because that is going to be a kick-ass series. I'm going to put a lot of time into this, so I'm excited for it. But guys, that's going to do it for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Hope you had fun in this one, but until then, take care.